Happy Sunday, everyone. It's great to be with you once again. Many of you know my father passed away a few months ago, and when I think about him, one of the things that I hope he left me was his sense of humor. Dad had a great sense of humor. I remember one time we were at a wake, and he was there, and my father's brother, my Uncle Vinny, every Italian has to have an Uncle Vinny, and I've got one. My Uncle Vinny, his older brother, was there with him, and Uncle Vin had a loud cough that day, and he coughed really loud in the funeral home. And my father turned dead serious and looked at him and said, "Will you keep that down? That's loud enough to wake the dead." And my Uncle Vinny, without missing a beat, looked over at the casket and then looked back at my father and said, "Do you think it'll work?" My father looked back at him and said, "I don't know, but if it does, I'm getting the hell out of here." Here we are on the edge of our cemetery, and I was always struck by the fact that right on the edge we have this old bell, which I think is the old church bell from the old church. I've always been one, I could never resist a bell. Let's take a listen to it. It's got this old wheel that you gotta kind of spin, and you gotta get it going. It works. Bells are an interesting thing. They're actually a liturgical thing. The church calls for the use of bells at different times, as you know, in the liturgy. And nothing that we do in the liturgy or in the church is without reason, especially when it comes to something like bells. By the way, if you're like me and you can't resist a good bell, next time you're out walking by, or especially if you have kids with you, come on over and ring the bell. That's what it's here for. But what makes bells so interesting is that the kind of clarion tone of it, it cuts right to the core. It makes you kind of pay attention and to what's going on. That's why at the high points in the liturgy, we often use bells. It's something that makes you stand up and pay attention. And that long gospel that you just saw on your screen, it's one of the things that Jesus did that really made people stand up and pay attention. He, up to this point, has performed tons of miracles for all different types of people, especially his disciples. They saw him walk on water, and they saw him calm the storm on the Sea of Galilee and curse the fig tree and turn water into wine at the wedding feast at Cana. And he healed people. Jesus was constantly healing people. The blind could see, the deaf could hear, the mute could speak, lepers were made clean. But now in the gospel we have kind of the miracle of all miracles. Jesus actually raises someone from the dead. And as you saw, if you read along with it at the beginning of this video, there is a lot there. There's a lot that you could sit and ponder with this gospel. But there's one line in particular in there that I'd like to kind of raise up and say that it's worth us thinking about. One of the shortest sentences in the whole gospel. Jesus gets there and... You are the worst. Aaron DeRoche, who's editing these videos, and I were talking the other day. We were saying we should do a St. Thomas blooper reel. That basketball you saw come flying through the screen, that was from David Campo, our seminarian, doing what seminarians do best, which is not that much, interrupting things. Anyways, this miracle of Jesus really cuts to the core of people, and it makes you stand up and pay attention. And as part of it, there's this line in the gospel, one of the shortest lines in the whole Bible, that I think is worth us pondering, which is Jesus gets there late. And that's probably on purpose. Lazarus was not only dead, he was most definitely dead, Days had passed. They're worried that there's going to be a stench. And when he finally runs into Lazarus' sister, and you have to remember, they're all friends, When he runs into her, she says, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And so Jesus says, "Well, show me where he is." And then there's this 3-sentence line in the Gospels. Do you know what it is? It's, "And Jesus wept." Jesus wept over the death of his friend Lazarus. He wept over how he saw the impact that it was having on this other person whom he loved, Lazarus' sister. And Jesus wept. And different spiritual authors from different periods all kind of end up saying the same thing, which is that emotion, that human emotion that Jesus as man had at the death of his friend Lazarus, that's the same love with which he loves us. That he loves us individually. He knows us. He really knows us. The whole us, with everything that we are, with all of our strengths and our weaknesses, with our sinful behavior, with everything that we hope for, everything that we dream of. Jesus Christ knows us, and he loves us and who we are at our most base level. The same love that Jesus had for his friends, he has for us. Why? Because we are his friends too. I once called you strangers. You once were strangers, Jesus says, but now I call you friends. So as we're kind of trudging along through this extended Lent, if you will, where different penances have been thrust upon us, penances like remaining in isolation and keeping social distance from each other, one of the things that can help us a lot is to know that Jesus calls us friends, that he weeps for us. He weeps as we weep. He really does love us. And we can never keep the big picture far from our minds, which is to remember that, yes, as man, Jesus wept, but as God, Jesus is the one who can do something about it. So, next week is Palm Sunday, so Lent is coming to a close. In 2 weeks, we will in some way, be it virtually or maybe even, please God, together, we will celebrate the great feast. And while we don't know what unexpected things might happen between now and then, one thing I know for sure is that we should be getting ourselves ready for this great feast that's coming. And one of the best ways to get ourselves ready is to sit and ponder the fact that our God is a God that is no stranger to us. You once were strangers, Jesus says, but now I have called you friends. And inasmuch as we're able to unite ourselves in friendship to God, well, then we'll be really ready to celebrate Easter in whatever way we have to, and we'll be ready to receive whatever graces the Lord wants to give us on that great Paschal feast. God bless you.